You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino. It's good to be back, Michael. I feel like I've been gone for a long time. I'm also
been gone for a long time,
right? I feel I have. I'm also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who's also the host of so many shows, including this one when I'm away most of the time now for work and stuff, traveling a lot.
Oh boy, here we go.
What?
Yeah, and you want to tell the audience, Mark, about how while you left me high and dry to do this show on my own,
yes,
you then sent me a text telling me how successful you are.
I did not do that. I did not.
You did do that. What are you talking about? You did too.
I was just pleasantly. I was pleasantly surprised by the Kansas City Comic-Con because I had a certain guarantee that, usually a guarantee is sort of a benchmark. It's like, I don't think I'm going to go much above the guarantee. But when you pass the guarantee by 5 times, the supernatural family is very generous.
Sure.
Then it's a thing. It's a thing to say. It's a thing to say.
And believe me, I'm happy for you. I am. I think it's great. You have earned your success. Nobody can take that away from you. But I will say, when you left me high and dry to host a show and then tell me how you made more money in the weekend, double what I make in a year, it's a bit much.
I apologize for that.
No. I tease.
But you know what?
Listen,
Your reaction is the same as my reaction would be if the situation were reversed. It's the capitalist reaction, my friend, which is we feel happy that our friends are
I absolutely
money. It's a good thing. It's always a good. We don't want to take it, Michael. I don't want to take over the legislature right now and pass a law taxing you. And you don't want to.
No,
you
don't.
Pass a law taxing me.
Yes. And, to be serious, I'm kidding, of course. I mean, you did send me the text, but the thing that I think a lot of people don't notice, and we'll get to you in a second, Robert, thank you, is that people will look at your success, right? And they'll say, oh, look at this guy went this weekend and look how much he's making. Look how well he's doing. But they don't look at all the effort, all the work that has gone into getting you to that point. The giving up of immediate gratification, the stuff that success requires. Instead, people are just envious. Oh, look at these rich people. They're making too much. They should be paying, higher taxes and subsidizing my, Twinkie diet or whatever.
Yeah, indeed, man. They forget that you get paid today for all the times you weren't getting paid or were paying to work for the years. So sometimes for most of us, it's a decade or more where you're working 4 jobs, you're working in the industry for free, favors for people that are also favors for you to try to build up your real. You're in essence living in poverty. Not to mention, Michael, the shame of going to a family reunion and your family going, "What do you do? You're an actor. Oh, what have you done?" In your early stages of your career, you don't have really any resume. It's a little bit embarrassing.
I get that all the time. Oh, you host a podcast, do you? How much do you make? Are you making anything yet? Or how many followers do you have?
Yeah.
So Robert Naser, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. And Robert says, if everybody submitted a super chat, then Mark could quit that little side job, acting, and devote himself full time to the Capitalist Corner. Listen, your words to God's ears or to my ears.
I'll
tell you what, know how it goes.
These super chats help Michael out. So please be generous with your super chats and with your stickers. They're great. They're great for Michael. And believe me, I would love to podcast full time so I could actually devote real time to research, Michael, instead of like getting 1,000 articles 2 hours before the show and perusing them as quickly as I can.
Okay, first of all, that's BS.
If I can,
that's BS.
Well, no, I get them 2 hours before the show because I wake up at 7 o'clock.
Oh, so because you want to spend all your time sleeping.
All my time sleeping.
Well, look,
I do want to spend enough time sleeping so that I regenerate my body from all the from all the wicked things I do to it when I'm training, man. I mean,
boy.
Michael, I could barely move my neck right now from wrestling yesterday. I got my shoulder issues. I got my knee going on. And you know what? And I had this terrible cold for a fucking month.
Oh my God.
Been traveling all over the world here with a cold. Not easy, right?
So Mark
Thank you,
has
Jenna
some
Queen, for
has
that
some sort of
$5.
cramping. Thank you so much, Jenna, for the $5. Mark is 60-something years old and doesn't understand that if he goes out and wrestles, he's going to end up with pains, and he's also crying about his sniffles. But you know what's a bigger deal than your sniffles, Mark?
What's that?
First of all, I want everybody to know that I got up at 3 this morning, my time, to do all the reading, and that's when I was sending you all this.
I want everyone to know that
stuff.
you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every freaking morning because you have insomnia.
Well, yeah, but listen, it's not every morning. That's pushing it, but a lot of mornings. But the first thing we should address here is something serious, right? And that's this national debt.
That's a great segue, but I want to say I like numbers. Says Mark lives in the West and doesn't have frequent insomnia. Hello, thank you very much.
Well, listen, if you could afford to have people rub your feet before you go to bed and give you cooling towels and warming towels and various sleeping aromas, you wouldn't have insomnia either.
It doesn't happen. Yeah, let's talk about the national debt, Michael, because it is ginormous. Can I just say, in my lifetime, let me go back even further. It took us about 200 years to get to $1 trillion in debt. And within my lifetime, it's ballooned to $37 trillion. Within my lifetime.
It's gone sick. And what sparked this is there was an article in Reason magazine that in 2016, Donald Trump ran and said that he would, it's €5 from Katrin. Thank you very much, Katrin.
Thanks, Katrin.
That he was going to pay down the debt. It would take him, I think he said 8 years to do it. Of course, he's done nothing but explode the debt. But it got me thinking. So I did a little Googling about what presidents have campaigned on when they were running. So Ronald Reagan argued that the government, not the taxpayer, was the problem, pledging to curb government spending, cut taxes, and balance the federal budget. He did not do that. George H.W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes, pledged to fix deficit through growth. Of course, did not do that. Bill Clinton, and despite what is touted, he did have some surpluses, but ultimately still added to the debt. George W. Bush.
But can I wait before you go on? Can I just talk a little bit about this, because Reagan had an opposition Congress, right? He had a Democrat.
Well, hold on. Let me go through the whole thing, and then you can do it. But let me at least finish.
All right, go ahead.
Oh my God. George W. Bush campaigned on using the projected budget surplus to fund tax cuts, arguing that the government did not need all the revenue. And of course, with his wars, exploded the debt. Barack Obama campaigned on fiscal responsibility, promising to tackle the deficit. Of course, basically doubled it. And then, of course, the aforementioned Trump. Joe Biden campaigned on building a stronger economy while managing the debt through tax increases in corporations. Of course, he exploded the debt. So let's get to this real quickly. We have another super chat from Robert Naser.
Thank you, Robert.
$10. Mark is 60-something. Hey, 60-something is the new 30-something. Further proof that these are the best of times. When I was a teenager, people over 60 were old. Now I'm just a kid. Well, I agree that as I'm approaching 50, that 50 is the new 30. But I still don't think that I'm going to go wrestle on a regular basis and then whine about aches and pains, and especially not sniffles. But we got more serious stuff to talk about than Mark's common cold, rhinovirus. Mark, address the debt thing.
Well, I just wanted to say, Reagan came in, of course, we thought he preached a great game, man. I remember voting against him the first term, voting for him the second term. I thought it was the end of the world, actually, because I was a Democrat. And when Reagan first got into office, I thought, that was going to be it for the United States of America. Wasn't the case. But he did campaign on small government. He seemed to understand that,
All right. Breaking news.
What?
Okay, so you and I are like the biggest idiots out there.
What?
Well, if this is accurate, then we're dumb. And Persephone needs to fact check this, please.
Really? Good. Okay. Thanks, Akira. You're keeping track of that.
But I knew it was coming up. We should have known it. We should have had something planned. Instead, we're here talking about your cold and my lack of money.
Oh, well, maybe we'll do something tomorrow. But Michael, so Reagan definitely campaigned. I thought he was going to end the Department of Education. I thought he was going to shrink government. He campaigned on that, but then he had an opposition Democrat Congress, right? And
it's even worse, Mark. It's even worse.
What? I'm in the middle of talking.
Yeah, but there was a YouTube notification.
Oh, there was?
It's a year anniversary.
I don't pay attention to that stuff. But thank you very much, Akira, for reminding us.
Okay, now go ahead. I won't interrupt again, but we have another super chat from Robert Naser. I'm never going to let Mark finish.
Is this an April Fool's? That's what it is.
No.
These guys are April Fooling us.
No, the first available episode of the Capitalist Corner was on April 1st, and it was episode 2. What happened to episode 1? Well, if we can't even keep track of our anniversary, what makes you think we're going to keep track of the episodes? All right, go ahead, Mark.
So Reagan had an opposition Congress that he felt he had to compromise with. He and Tip O'Neill had a very interesting relationship. And one of the reasons I think that Clinton was able to, cobble together an administration that can take some responsibility for some surpluses was because he had an opposition Republican Congress at the time. Yeah. and that was when the Republicans actually had some principles respecting smaller government. They were the opposition party, and they really did impose on Clinton the idea of fiscal responsibility and welfare reform. He stuck his finger in the air and said, as a pragmatist, yeah, you're right, I should go this way. And he did, and benefited from it, and winds up, Michael, being one of the most fiscally responsible people, to occupy the office in years and years and years. But by chance, it wasn't his ideology. It was his ability to roll with the political punches that made that happen.
Yes.
But now, Michael, we're in a $37 trillion spiral. There's no hint from Trump that he has any desire to conquer the debt. In fact, his stated policies will guarantee growth of the debt. His stated policies are what? Not to touch entitlements, which are 75% of the debt. They're the main driver of the debt. And to lower taxes, so to lower revenues while exploding the debt. And now we've got, of course, a war to pay for overseas. So, Michael, there's no time at which this president is going to take care of the debt he promised to get rid of in 8 years. And there's no will to do it. So we're faced with a potential fiscal crisis that, the Austrians have been talking about for a long time. Lots of people have been saying it's going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen, folks, but it's going to happen if we continue down this road.
Right. So, first of all, Katie is going to kill me if I don't put this up. So, Katie, thank you so much for the $4.99. Hey, at least Mark is keeping himself moving by training, so he's leading by example.
Truth.
Well, okay, I'll give you that much, but I would prefer a little less, the other stuff. But whatever. Listen, Mark's a good guy. He's
No, a little less of the other stuff means I'm not working. If I have a lot of time to do the podcast, Michael, it means I'm not
I mean less complaining. I mean less complaining.
Right,
yeah, that's the other stuff.
I'll try to keep that down to a minimum.
So, I just went over this, the presidents, and let me just tell you what they added to the presidency, to the national debt, I mean. So under both Warren Harding and Calvin Coolidge, there was a actual reduction in the debt. Harry Truman raised it slightly. Kennedy, 5.8% he added. Eisenhower added 7.6%. Taft added 8.7%. Lyndon Johnson, 11.5%. Herbert Hoover, 15.1%. Gerald Ford, 16.4%. Theodore Roosevelt, 22.6%. Bill Clinton, 28.6%. Jimmy Carter, 29.9%. Biden, 30.5%. Nixon, 34.3%. Trump's first term added 39.2% to the national debt. W added 42%. HW, added 42%. Barack added 64.4%. W, 72%. Reagan, 160.8%. Woodrow Wilson, 789.9%. And the big winner, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 791.8%. This is a problem with both parties. There's plenty of blame to go around, sir.
Well, at least in the earlier days, Michael, the Republicans had a bit of a principle that to try to keep fiscal responsibility, and they sort of believed in the conservation of classical liberalism. Once Woodrow Wilson, I think, broke the mold with progressivism and the idea that science and technocracy could sort of combine with each other, and they could mold society into the ideal. That's when government spending just became insane, and now the Republicans are accepting that mold. They've accepted the progressive mold that the government is actually a provider. It's not a protector. It's a provider that can equalize outcomes and create justice by engineering society towards the outcomes that it desires.
So Robert Nacer, I think, is implying that I'm a complainer. I guess I'm complaining about you complaining. He says, now it's obvious Michael is goading me into super chatting. I sure hope so, Robert, but thank you. Accusing Mark of complaining. Michael accusing Mark of complaining. Ha ha.
Thank you,
right.
Robert.
I mean, look. Are you thanking him for the super chat or for?
I'm thanking him because he sees what's up.
All right.
That's right. He sees
Persephone. Yeah. Look, Persephone disagrees. Anyway, so you know what would help with the national debt, Mark? A great deal.
Not spending as much.
Well, yeah. I mean that would.
Okay.
Can I tell a quick funny story?
Is it related to this, or is it just a non sequitur?
No, it's a non sequitur, but it's funny.
Okay, go ahead.
So we go shopping the other day, Diana and I, and she buys 3 waters. What made me think of this is what you and I just went through, kind of. And I want you to tell me what skit this reminds you of. So anyway, we get to the front, and we get 3 cases of water. The water's on sale. But you have to have the digital coupon, which we don't yet have. So Diana had to go over to the machine to do it. So first Diana says to me, can you go do it? And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, I don't even know I have no clue what we're even talking about. So she goes and she comes back. But now the girl behind the counter, who really doesn't speak English very well, she calls somebody else for help. So she calls her over and she says, can you come over here for water? And Diana says, no, it's 3 waters. And the girl says, no, for water. And Diana says, no, we're getting 3 waters. And this goes back and forth, and the people behind us are getting aggravated. And I'm like, she's saying it's for the water. She's not saying the number 4.
Oh, that's
water.
hilarious. That's hilarious. What skit is that?
That doesn't remind you of a skit? Literally from Robert with $2? Mark, really? You don't know what that's from?
Oh, I didn't say I didn't know. I'm not saying I didn't know. It might be in my brain pan somewhere, but it's useless material that I've discarded.
Let me see if Persephone knows. Persephone, what skit does that remind you of? All right, she's muted and not much help anyway. Who's on first?
Oh, okay. Abbott and Costello.
Oh, my God. All right, so now I know that the people around me have no sense of humor, or they just don't want to hear me talk.
Or maybe you're just not funny.
Oh, no one's buying that, dude.
All right, so where were we before?
I wanted to know what could help with the national debt, and its segue is, of course, to individual rights, a restoration of individual rights in this country. Now, I talked pretty extensively about it yesterday, the philosophical case. But today, I want to get into a little bit, Mark, the Lockean roots of the Declaration of Independence and the concept of individual rights. Of course, Locke argued that each person, now he was wrong about some things, the God-given nature of rights, but by and large, his idea that people have a right to their life, liberty, and the property they consume, and nobody can justly infringe on somebody else's, and that the purpose of government is to protect these rights, is, that's the backbone of this country. That's what this country was founded upon. And you just don't hear a lot about it anymore. So I actually looked into this and I wanted to know what presidents have actually even discussed this idea of natural rights. So I asked, let me see if this is the right thing here. Okay, I asked Gemini, going back to Washington, what presidents have promoted the Lockean idea of individual rights? So we have George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. All right, 3 of the first 4 presidents. So that's very early on. Calvin Coolidge, the aforementioned, who actually lowered the debt. And then we get to Reagan, right? Who blew up the debt, but he did at least talk. Like you said, Republicans used to at least talk the language of rights. So they, and it goes on to say the key themes in Lockean presidential policy: property is freedom, limited government, rejection of tyranny. Yes, but that's gone. Very few people talk the language of Lockean rights. Yes, Christopher Smith points out there have been presidents that mention rights and they'll throw in the Declaration and things of that nature, but they're not actually speaking of rights in a Lockean sense. Thank you, I am Regina, for the €5. She says, thank you both for being here every day and for inspiring us.
Thanks, Regina.
You are very welcome, and thank you. So, Mark, I'm going to give you a nice softball over the plate right now. I want you to knock this out of the park.
Don't say that.
Why?
What if I swing and miss?
Well, then don't swing and miss, brother. Here's the question. Why? Why has there been such a decline in the topic of individual rights in this country? Why such a betrayal of the founding principles?
I would say that at the time of the founding, there were conflicting moral attitudes. One was the individualist one, which I think animates the concept of natural right. And the other one was altruism, the idea of duty to the other and service to the other. And these conflicting rights were born at the same time. And the one being altruism with that respected duty to the other became the dominant ethics. And I think through the years, the political philosophy reflected that, and I think it was most explicitly brought out with Roosevelt's Second Declaration of Rights, where he began to talk about rights as entitlements to stuff in pure reflection of altruist ideals. But that's my point of view.
All right. So, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to go a little deeper. So according to, I went to Claude, I fact-checked Claude, and I read a few other articles, all of which I think Persephone is going to post. Correct, Persephone? Yes? Nod? No? Persephone,
I think she said she was posting that already. I think she said she was posting it in the chat.
Anyway, so it says, it breaks it down. It says the pre-progressive erosions. The first cracks came not from progressivism, but from 3 earlier intellectual currents. Natural rights had been attacked before the progressive era by proponents of a racial ethnology, advocates of the philosophy of history, historical determinism, basically, and followers of Charles Darwin. But the real assault, it says here, came from John Dewey, right? So John Dewey is the chief architect, according to this, of this progressive ideology, and he says there's 5 distinct levels that he directed at the philosophy of individual rights. He says America had entered a new industrial age requiring new political theory. That's interesting because today the Solicitor General arguing for birthright citizenship to the president, to the Supreme Court, said, these are different times. And John Roberts responded, it's the same Constitution, which I thought was awesome. But anyway,
that's great. But so many people will accuse him of holding the Constitution above reality.
Oh boy, nice shot. Okay, anyway, so America entered a new industrial age requiring new political theory. So that's Codswallop. All claims of truth, including natural rights claims, are relative to historical moment that produced them. 3, natural rights ideology served the bourgeois class interests. 4, it encouraged a stunted individualism rather than fuller human development. And 5, any fixed standard prior to democratic decision making is intrinsically anti-democratic. And it says that's crucial. So I want to take these one by one, Mark. First, America had entered a new industrial age requiring new political theory. What say you?
Well, bullshit, of course, but this sort of harkens back to what I said with respect to Woodrow Wilson and the progressive era, which Dewey, frankly, was a part of, in my view, and that is the idea that they could combine science and technology with an elite political class in order to form society the way they wanted to. And I think that was probably Dewey's conception, as Woodrow Wilson's conception, as most of the progressives at the time. So, of course, it's codswallop, man, because you either live by principles or you don't. And the principles, the great thing about principles, Michael, they're a sum of knowledge, and they don't change. They can be built upon, but they're essentially true for all time. Go ahead.
Right. And, the new industrial age doesn't all of a sudden make force okay. It doesn't make theft okay. It doesn't make hurting people okay. Right? The laws of economics don't change, but also human nature. What it means to be a human hasn't changed. The fact that freedom is the requirement for reason. That we need freedom in order to think, in order to produce, in order to thrive. That doesn't change because you've gone from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. All right, his second, all claims of truth, including natural rights, are relative to the historical moment that produced them.
Yeah, Michael, that's just ethical relativism on crack, and it sounds like it's the beginning of postmodernism, to be honest with you, as if there are no truths, there are no universal truths. The truths are relative to the times and to the people in power who sort of dictate those truths to the rest of us, which we accept or don't. So that's also nonsense. There are truths that hold for all times, particularly when we're talking about ethics and rules of governance. These things are true for all times and all people.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing to me is that, okay, so Dewey's time has now passed. So wouldn't then our own argument destroy his position, because now we're in new times, so his views would no longer be applicable? But of course, truth is truth. It doesn't make a difference what time you're in. If something is true, it's true. It doesn't change. But you could say, for instance, I suppose there's examples of, well, if you catch syphilis, you're likely going to die. That has changed because of the, of course, discovery of penicillin. But it was still true at the time, objectively so, and it's still true that only penicillin cured it. So that seems ridiculous to me. How about this one here, Mark? Natural rights ideology served the bourgeois class interests.
Yeah, there you go again. The idea again that these concepts like individual rights come from power structures, and they're developed by power structures to keep them ensconced in power and to oppress the rest of us. The ironic thing about it, which John Dewey doesn't seem to recognize, is that individual rights apply to everyone. In fact, it's a great leveler of power, because that rich person who has billions of dollars has the exact same rights as the poor person to his own property and life, and has the exact same prohibitions against him for taking the property and life of that other person. So to me, it's the great social equalizer.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it's in everybody's interest to not have violence used against them, to not have force against them, to not be enslaved. That's everybody's interest. And of course, even beyond that, the economics are just irrefutable at this point, that the more free the economy, the more people are lifted from poverty. So there's another BS argument from Dewey. 4, it encouraged a stunted individualism rather than fuller human development.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, that's just coming from that cliche perspective that individualism means you are an island unto yourself, or that you pursue values at the expense of everybody around you. It doesn't incorporate the idea that an individual values lots of things and lots of people, and that working towards those things in people means that lots of other people are going to benefit. Now, that's not the reason for the justification of individualism, but individualism doesn't stunt you at all. It doesn't destroy your sense of community. It doesn't destroy your sense of connection with other people. If anything, it grows it. It grows it. A person who's free and doesn't feel like his brother's his neighbor's living is gotten off the skin of his back is more benevolently inclined to his neighbor than one who feels like his neighbor's going to skin him alive because he has more. I mean, let's face it, Michael. Modern Russia and socialist economies have notoriously ungenerous populations, and they're not generous because they're cannibalistic societies economically, and the people grow up with that notion that you can't get ahead without harming another person. Individualism is the opposite of that, and yet it's painted by guys like Dewey as being ravenous and rapacious and cannibalistic. It's the opposite. It's collectivism that is rapacious and cannibalistic.
Nice. I can't add anything to that, so I'm not going to try. That was great, Mark. All right, 5, any fixed standard prior to democratic decision-making is intrinsically anti-democratic.
Yeah, that's another thing, Michael. Well, he came up with the social theory of education too. So everything is done by committee in his mind. Truths aren't discovered by committee, folks. Truths are discovered by the individual mind. Principles are uncovered by the individual mind, and lots of other individuals can test those truths for themselves. And when they become tried and true, they become principles that we can all benefit from. But these don't arrive by committee, folks. They arrive by individuals setting their mind to a task and achieving the task.
All right. So that's great too, Mark, by the way. Claude here goes on to say, for the founders, natural rights were rightful claims to one's own talents and possessions. In the modern liberal view that Dewey helped construct, rights became rightful claims on the talents and resources of others. The shift from negative to positive rights, from rights against government interference to rights to government provision, is essentially the Deweyan inversion of Locke.
And it's awful, and it's given us the welfare state that's driving a $37 trillion debt and pushing the country into bankruptcy, moral bankruptcy and material bankruptcy. And Michael, it's changed society. So we have a society now of very fragile individuals who feel like, they're shaped by circumstances around them. They have no power over anything in their own lives, that their life is essentially a disease, an addiction, that they have no power to cure themselves. That this is the result of that kind of mentality, as opposed to individualism, which is you are a sovereign being. You're a sovereign being who has to direct your own life and go after your own values, which produces, Michael, virtuous behavior. Virtuousness. It emulates virtuousness.
So, Mark, here we go with what you were talking about earlier. Woodrow Wilson contributed the political vehicle. Wilson argued that the Constitution should be understood as a living organism, not a fixed mechanism designed to protect timeless rights. The separation of powers, which the founders designed precisely to prevent government from overriding natural rights through consolidated authority, was reframed by Wilson as an obstacle to efficient democratic governance.
Yeah, he certainly did. I mean, look, he was the president of Princeton University. He considered himself, and probably was, a very intelligent, knowledgeable man. But Michael, in his own mind, he was the most intelligent man in the room, or any room that he was in. And he didn't want to be hampered by silly things like constitutions. So he thought, Michael, that I think in the Platonic vision of enlightened kings, enlightened bureaucrats could actually direct society far better than the individual left to his own devices. And he tried to really implement that in government.
And, then it goes on to talk about Oliver Wendell Holmes and legal positivism, that basically, I should just read it instead of trying to remember it. From, I heard Cody meow.
Yeah, he's a good boy. Hi, buddy.
Holmes rejected, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. rejected natural law jurisprudence, root and branch. For Holmes, law was simply what courts do, a prediction of force, not a reflection of moral reality. So, in Oliver Wendell Holmes' view, law, constitutions, freedom, these have nothing to do with morality. It's basically, I think he's the one that said the Constitution is what I say it is. I think. I'm not positive. Persephone, can you look that up for me, please?
Now that's frightening. I mean, that's verging on our esteemed president's primacy of consciousness today, where the war ends when I say it ends. I can do what I want. I can even shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and I'll be fine.
Yes, 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 yes. So, and then it just gets to the consolidation of all this. Basically the death blow, I guess, to the idea of individual rights was Franklin Delano Roosevelt in the New Deal. And of course, we saw that when we comes to the first thing we talked about, national debt as a percentage, Roosevelt had the greatest increase in national debt. But if, Mark, we ever wish to reclaim our country, reclaim our freedom, reclaim capitalism, this is the hill we need to live on, is the battle for individual rights. And I just, when it comes to the Constitution, which, while imperfect, of course, was the mechanism for defending rights, this is from a letter, Thomas Jefferson to George Washington. To take a single step beyond the boundaries thus specially drawn around the powers of Congress is to stake possession of a boundless field of power, no longer susceptible of any definition.
Beautiful. You can't say it any better than that, man. It's beautiful. And we've not only taken one step beyond that, Michael, we've taken 1,000 steps beyond that. We're now fully in the throes of a spoils system democracy where the politicians are able to bribe whole constituencies with promises of stuff, of subsidies, of protections, special privileges bestowed on them by law. And now we have a large portion of the population dependent upon that. So, Michael, our attempt to climb that hill and reestablish the idea that individual rights is the primary moral motive that grounds government is going to be a big hill to climb. But it's going to be one that we stick to, because we have a lot of people benefiting from this. Now, it doesn't matter that they're benefiting at the expense of others. It doesn't matter to them that it's about to run the economy over the cliff and everybody's going down with the ship. It doesn't matter to them, because that's an abstraction, Michael. Like the possibility of cancer is an abstraction to somebody who continues to smoke cigarettes. Until and unless that crisis happens, I don't think they're going to be open to these ideas.
So we got two really good comments. So one is from Persephone. No, one is from Robert Naser. I'm sorry. He says, knowing the difference between context keeping and relativism requires understanding that both context and principles are based on facts of reality, not feelings, not arbitrary values, arbitrarily adopted values. Thank you, Robert. That was great. And Persephone says, the phrase, the Constitution is what I say it is often inaccurately attributed to Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. The sentiment is more commonly linked to Charles Evans Hughes, who said in 1907, we are under a constitution, but the Constitution is what the judges say it is. So I stand corrected. It was not Mr. Holmes. It was Mr. Hughes.
Well, it was some son of a bitch, let's just put it that way, who was reflecting the tenor of the times, man. And let's go back to what the Constitution is, not what people say it is, folks.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, 100%, Mark. And, we need to, and I talked about this yesterday, but us advocates of capitalism, we really need to understand the history. We need to understand individual rights, what they are, their source, their connection to capitalism, and we need to be able to make these arguments consistently. It is the only chance we have.
Right, folks. Any government that is not premised upon individual rights is a government you should run from. It has no legitimacy. The only legitimate government there is one that protects individual rights and your inviolable right to property, your sovereignty, your individual human sovereignty, folks. That is what a government of natural right that conforms to the nature of man should be about. So, Michael, speaking of all this craziness, do you want to start moving into the Iran war and Trump's Trump's wacky take on what's going on. What do you think about this?
Well,
You want to keep going with
no. We could get to we could get to this. It's important. It's related. So first of all, China and Pakistan have proposed a 5-point peace plan for the Iran war. That's the first thing that has occurred here.
Yeah, no, that's pretty crazy, Michael, given that Pakistan is one of the sources and I think one of the biggest sources of Islamicist terror around the world, certainly not a friend to America, as well as China. China would love to see America hobbled in some way. Them coming up with a peace proposal is rather interesting. You want to talk about what the 5 proposals were, and what do you think about them?
I don't even know if my let me try to find what they are.
Let me see if I
So
have them
you
up here.
because I'm blocked now from accessing it.
Yeah, it's not coming up on my thing.
Hold on, I'll have it in a moment. I don't know that it really even matters because the Iranians don't seem interested in negotiating, Mark, despite what Trump keeps saying.
Well, that's one story I've been hearing, but I've also been hearing that the new president is sort of a moderate. He sort
Okay.
of says that they have a will to
All right,
end
so
the
I have
war.
them. Here's the 5 points.
I have them as well. Go ahead.
Okay. The immediate cessation of hostilities, a call for an immediate ceasefire in the conflict, urging parties to prevent further escalation. So stop before the war is won.
Correct.
That's what I hear there. Promotion of peace talks, initiating diplomatic talks to resolve the conflict, respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all nations involved. So negotiate with folks that have been chanting death to America for what, I don't know, 40 some odd years now.
Not only that,
40
Michael,
years.
but pretend that an authoritarian, totalitarian state has sovereignty. Let's pretend that they're a sovereign state, even though they don't respect the sovereignty of their individual citizens. Let's pretend they're legitimate and deal with them as if they're legitimate.
Yes. So then the next thing is they want to protect non military targets, ensuring the safety of civilians, energy infrastructure, the other non military targets. I will simply return to point 1. If you have an immediate cessation of all hostilities, then point 3 is not relevant.
Yeah, well, of course, Trump is threatening to take out a lot of these these civilian sites, power plants, desalination plants. Of course, that changes from day to day, but he certainly held that out there as a possibility if they continue to keep the Straits of Hormuz closed.
Yes. So number 4 is the security of shipping lanes, securing the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding waters to ensure the safe passage of commercial ships. And 5, upholding the UN
but Michael,
Charter.
but they don't say anything about whether Iran should control the Straits of Hormuz and control the passage or not.
No.
It's just a matter of letting ships pass, but who controls it is so far debatable. And Iran is going to go for that because it's the one thing they've got.
Yes. And then number 5, upholding the UN Charter, strengthening the primacy of the United Nations Charter and utilizing multilateralism to establish a lasting peace framework. No, I'm with you. But of course, these are all part of my skepticism in relation to the war. So, so tonight, Donald Trump is going to address the nation, 9 p.m. tonight. I will be
Lord
watching.
Have mercy. He has a speech, Michael. He has a speech. It's written to be about an hour long, but prepare yourselves for about 3 hours.
So there's this article here from I don't know where it's from. I'll tell you that in a minute. But it says Iran has necessary will to end conflict. It says Iranian president. In Israel, as long as certain conditions are met, that's what the country's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, or whatever it is, said on Tuesday. So it comes with heavy caveats, namely that guarantees are put in place there will not be a return of the conflict. This doesn't really change much, it says. And we also have that Trump says that the U.S. will leave Iran in 2 to 3 weeks. That's from the BBC, by the way, and so is this.
He's been signaling to Iran for quite a while that he wants out, even though he's posturing like he's going to take out more targets over there. Michael, I thought part of the psychological aspect of war is that the other side doesn't know when it's going to end, and because they don't know when it's going to end, it drains them psychologically to the point where they ask for it to end in the form of surrender. You don't give them a timetable. You don't say we're out in 2 weeks, because Michael, anybody can take anybody can take damage if they know the time is just a specific area.
To be fair, he's lied in the past about this sort of thing and then launched attacks. So they're probably not really buying it anyway. But his media office has previewed a televised address. Trump says the U.S. now dominates Iranian skies. He says that Iran says it will reopen the Strait of Hormuz for those who comply with the new laws of Iran. Trump criticized U.S. allies, telling them to get their own oil. So it's certainly... there's a lot going on. That's it. Donald Trump says on his Truth Social post this morning, and this was also posted to the White House Twitter page, Iran's new regime president, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors,
They always are.
has just asked the United States of America for a ceasefire. We will continue when Hormuz Strait is open, free, and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. According to Grok, this is BS. That this didn't happen. They're not asking. They did not ask for a ceasefire. There's nothing to vindicate that. But Trump has on various occasions said that the Straits of Hormuz need to open. The Straits of Hormuz don't have to open. So who the hell knows?
Michael, in typical primacy of consciousness mode, Trump has also said, once we get out, all right, once we get out, he said two things. The Europeans are going to have to take care of the Straits of Hormuz themselves, or whoever uses it is going to have to take care of that themselves. But he's also said the Straits of Hormuz will open by themselves.
Yeah.
They're just going to open up, Michael.
Yeah. So look, the war is still unconstitutional. And we have a president who doesn't seem committed to actually winning. Maybe he is. I don't know. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what he's doing. But it certainly doesn't seem like they're going to stick this thing out till the end.
No.
He's claiming regime change because the former leader died. Meanwhile, the regime is still intact. So it's just...
But Michael, they're dealing with a whole different group of people. Now, they may have the same ideology, but they're dealing with a bunch of different people. Now, you can't deny that they are dealing with different people.
And from what I've seen, and Persephone, please look this up. I believe that the new leader is actually more radical than the previous leader. I've heard this. I don't know if it's true. So a quick fact check from Lady Persephone would be very much appreciated.
I feel like in that respect, Michael, this is the same news that we've always had from Iran. We pretend like the leader that we're dealing with is more moderate and is a rational or semi-rational voice in that regime, when they're not. They never are, and negotiations are never in good faith. My wish list, Mike, would be a horrible thing. I think Chris might have said it up there, which is you have to make the regime lose hope. They have to lose hope, and the only way they can lose hope is to make life so unbearable to them that the citizens either rise up, the regime collapses, and something else happens. But they certainly can't rest on their laurels and stay alive and claim victory. You have to take out their infrastructure. You have to take out their power plants. You have to take out their desalination plants. You have to take out their capacity to produce oil, and you have to make them hurt like they've never hurt before. Unfortunately, that's the way a war is going to have to go, and it doesn't look like the president has the will to do that.
No. Persephone, thank you for this, but can you also check about the new president, whether he's more radical or less radical? So Persephone found something here. It says, following the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in March 2026, Iran's Assembly of Experts selected his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as the new supreme leader. widely seen as more radical and hardline than his father. His selection was driven by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, signaling a potential increase in defiance, internal repression, and risk-taking behavior. I don't know if it's the same president. Trump is saying that Iran's new president. So maybe there's not a new president. There's not a new president? Okay, so Trump's claim that there's a new president that is much more reasonable. Evidently, there's not even a new president. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, the decentralized command structure that they have, Michael, just means that when we kill one level, another level steps up to take over, but they're all driven by the same ideology. You know, it may be a different set of people, but they're driven by the same ideology, which is something that we shouldn't be negotiating with at all. And I don't think this, even if he was playing 4D chess, Michael, I don't think the way in which he's playing with the stock market, playing with the hearts and minds of us, you know, of the soldiers and of the Iranian people is necessarily a smart move. It just makes him look like a chaotic guy. It's not just even keeping people on their heels and making them think he's crazy and unpredictable. He just looks chaotic.
Well, he is chaotic. And here's the thing. For the people that say, well, he's trying to keep the Iranians off guard, Trump is always like this. It's not just in this case here. And Robert here has given us another $5. I might be able to retire on Robert's Super Chats.
Thank you,
He
Robert.
said, I appreciate the pro-war side of this, but I still wonder what outcome they're imagining. On what basis do they imagine a better regime taking hold? Well, yes, Robert. And to me, this is just reminiscent, again, of Michael Munger's article on unicorn governance. Is that we're not dealing with the ideal that we can imagine. We don't have a genius, military genius president. We don't have an American populace that seems to be wanting to see this through till the end. So to say, well, I support war because, you know, okay, what I want to know always is what's the goal? Trump just said this morning his only goal is nuclear annihilation. I mean, destruction of their nuclear programs. The other day, Rubio said, this is clear. You should get this. He named, I think, 4 or 5 things, none of which were destruction of the nuclear. So who the hell knows what the end game is?
Yeah, Trump doesn't know himself, and there can really only be one proper end game here, Michael, and that is total regime change and the installation of a democratic government. What I mean by that is not just one elected by the people, but one that embraces liberal principles, liberalism in the sense that we mean it. There's no other solution to this problem. Otherwise, Michael, they're just kicking the can down the road. I mean, Trump pats himself on the back for, quote unquote, eliminating the nuclear issue with Iran. But in the very next sentence says they won't be able to do anything. They won't be able to rebuild their program for another 10 or 15 years. Okay, so you've just kicked the problem down the road to our children and our children's children. You haven't eliminated the problem. You've just delayed it and potentially made it worse by delaying it, by the way.
All right. I don't know. Let me go and see. Oh, by the way, we're streaming on Twitch, just so everybody knows. I, of course, didn't stream on Twitch when Persephone was not here because I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that stuff. But Persephone does, and thank God she's back. Listen, guys, I tease Persephone, but I've been lost without her. I got to be honest. It's only been 2 days, and oh, my Lord, what a nightmare I've had.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Are you really? Is that why you didn't show up to help?
Yeah, I can't be here without Persephone.
Oh, my Lord. All right.
I'm sorry.
So anyways, let me see if anybody answered my question from yesterday. I don't think anybody actually did. Nobody seems to care.
What is the low participation in the question answering? What's that all about? How come people aren't playing the game?
Well, it's not a game. Maybe that's why. You don't call it a game.
No?
You call it helping us out.
Oh, okay.
Well, oh, wow. We're up to 795 subscribers. I'm happy about that.
Let's get to 800, folks. Let's get to 800. Remember to like and subscribe this channel, folks, and share it across social media platforms. Please, because these ideas need to get out there in the world.
Oh, okay. we've got two comments from yesterday. One guy says, Market Gobber says, I really enjoyed this episode. More such slightly more philosophical topics, please. And Jenna Kleem says, don't have an idea. Stay mindful and be kind. All right, Marcus, you give us here the capitalist thought of the day. I'll give us the takeaway question, and then the going away question, and then we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, folks, capitalism is a system based on property rights and individual rights, folks, and no government is legitimate if it doesn't rest on the foundation of individual rights. That's the primary moral principle that should guide all societies everywhere. And if you want that to be the case, folks, and you got to listen to this channel, and you got to listen and spread it throughout social media so that people understand what individual rights are, why they're good, why we need to preserve them, why it is the optimum state for society to live in. So, folks, I'll turn it over to Michael to ask his question, and then I'll give you my outright.
I was hoping for a more robust, a lengthier capitalist thought of the day, because we seem to have ended the show just a little bit early today.
I apologize.
And I ended it early yesterday also. So I don't want to go away. I don't want to leave people going away mad. Let me ask you about a movie I recently saw, Mark. Are you familiar with the director Sergio Leone by any chance?
Sergio Leone, yes.
Oh, Leone. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Leone. All right.
Yes.
Have you ever seen Once Upon a Time in America?
Yes, I have.
Did you like it?
I did.
I did too. You know what I did not like about it? I didn't
What?
like that. I wish they didn't make Noodles a scumbag.
Okay. I have no idea what you're talking about because I don't remember. I saw it many years ago, but
Oh my
I
God.
enjoyed
Okay.
it.
So in most of the gangster movies, they have a way, being a famous actor yourself, that they have a way of making even bad people, you're sympathetic to them. You like them. I mean, the Vito Corleone, even Michael Corleone, in the first Godfather, Sonny Corleone, you like these guys, right?
Yeah.
So in this, the character that De Niro played, Noodles, was a rapist. So it's like he was the protagonist of the story, and he was a scumbag. But the other thing that I didn't know this at the time, but I read it. Once Upon a Time in America, the Sergio Leone, he likes to leave things to interpretation.
Leone.
Yeah, Leone. We're going with
Leone.
No,
Okay.
I'm an American.
Okay.
Right? And Italy lost yesterday. They didn't even get into the World Cup. So let's not be rewarding them.
Yeah, but Sergio
Soccer.
Leone's done the great spaghetti westerns, man.
Okay, Sergio Leone's great. I do love the spaghetti western. By the way, but yeah, he I guess he leaves things up for interpretation. It was a 4-hour movie. So my question for the day is, for everybody watching, have you seen Sergio Leone's movies? If so, what is your favorite? So for those of you who have seen Sergio Leone's movies, what is your favorite? And if you haven't seen one, just tell me what your favorite Clint Eastwood movie is, because certainly you must have seen a Clint Eastwood movie.
Oh,
right,
heck yeah.
Mark.
All right,
heck
folks. Tune in tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking about the news issues of the day from a capitalist individual rights perspective. You got 23 hours to check your premises, folks. So please do that thing. Check your premises. Peace.
And check out our Patreon at patreon.com / The Capitalist Corner, and also check out www.thecapitalistcorner.org. Now that you know that information, you are in a much better position to check your premises. Oh, today, in addition to being April Fool's Day, is National Fun at Work Day. So I hope you've had fun today at work.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.